If you enjoy videos like this, subscribe to the channel before the video starts. The sun was just beginning to rise over the quiet lake. The water looked like glass, reflecting the orange and pink colors of the morning sky. Birds were singing softly, and a gentle breeze moved through the trees. It was the perfect morning for fishing, the kind of morning that made anyone feel peaceful. On the shore of the lake, a man named Alex was getting ready. He had his fishing rod in one hand and a small tackle box in the other. Today, he thought, would be the perfect day to relax and maybe catch a big fish. Alex loved this lake. It wasn't just any lake, it was his own. Well, technically, he had full permission to use it, and he had been fishing here many times before. It was quiet, private, and calm. He had spent many mornings like this, listening to the sounds of nature and enjoying the feeling of freedom. Fishing was more than a hobby for Alex, it was a way to forget the stress of work and life. Today, he didn't expect anything unusual. He set his small boat on the shore and carefully pushed it into the water. It floated gently, almost as if it knew how important this moment was. Alex climbed in and began arranging his fishing gear. He checked the bait, tied his hooks, and glanced at the sky. Everything was perfect. The only sound was the soft splash of water as his boat moved. He cast his line into the lake and leaned back, ready to enjoy his morning. But little did Alex know, something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would disturb his peaceful morning in a way he never imagined. Someone was coming, and this person was not coming to enjoy the lake. They were coming with anger, rules, and a phone ready to call the authorities. From the other side of the lake, a woman was walking quickly. She moved with purpose, her eyes fixed on the water. This was Karen, known to some as HOA Karen. She was the kind of person who liked to control everything around her. If she saw someone doing something, she felt it was her job to stop it. Today, she had spotted Alex. And just like that, she decided she would intervene. Karen was known in the neighborhood for her strict rules and sharp tongue. She loved rules more than anything else. If there was a sign, she would read it and make sure everyone else followed it too. Today, she was on a mission. She believed she had seen someone breaking the rules. Someone fishing where they shouldn't. What Karen didn't know was that Alex had every right to be there. But that didn't matter. In her mind, the rules were clear, and someone had to enforce them. As Karen approached the lake, she started muttering to herself. Who does he think he is? This is private property. He shouldn't be here. Her voice was full of anger and determination. Her eyes were fixed on Alex, who was completely unaware of her presence. He sat in his boat, relaxed, enjoying the water and the sun. He had no idea that his peaceful morning was about to turn into a scene of chaos. Alex felt a small tug on his fishing line. He pulled it gently, hoping for a good catch. The fish fought hard, splashing water everywhere. Alex smiled. This was exactly what he loved about fishing, the calm moments, the small victories, the connection with nature. He had no idea that while he was enjoying this peaceful moment, Karen was already planning her next move. Karen reached the edge of the lake and stopped. She looked at Alex, her eyes narrowing. What is he doing here? She whispered to herself. Does he even know he's not supposed to be here? She pulled out her phone, holding it tightly in her hand. In her mind, she was already imagining the call to 911. She was sure this was illegal, sure that someone needed to stop Alex. She didn't care that he might be a member or had permission. In her mind, the rules were clear, and he was breaking them. Meanwhile, Alex continued fishing, completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit him. He reeled in his line slowly, enjoying the peaceful sounds of the morning. The birds were still singing, the water was still calm, and everything felt perfect. He had no idea that Karen was standing just a few feet away, watching him with suspicion and preparing to take action. Karen finally stepped closer to the water. She watched Alex carefully, making sure she had all the details right. Yes, he's definitely fishing. I have to do something, she said to herself. Her fingers tightened around her phone. She was ready. In her mind, she was doing the right thing, protecting the rules, protecting the neighborhood. She didn't realize that her actions would soon create a scene that nobody would forget. Alex felt another tug on his line. This time, the fish was stronger, and he had to work harder to pull it in. He laughed quietly to himself, enjoying the challenge. "This is going to be a good one," he said, smiling. But just as he was focused on the fish, he heard a loud, sharp voice from the shore. "Hey! What are you doing?" Karen shouted. Alex looked up, confused. He didn't recognize the woman at first. I'm just fishing," he said politely. "Is there a problem?" Karen didn't answer. Instead, she waved her phone in the air, ready to make the call. Her face was red with anger, and her eyes were full of determination. "Yes, there is a problem," she shouted. "Someone is breaking the rules, and I'm calling the authorities." Alex stared at her, shocked. He had never met anyone like Karen before. He had fished here many times without any issues. He had permission, and yet this woman was treating him like a criminal. He felt a mixture of confusion and frustration. "Wait, what? You can't do that," he shouted back. But Karen didn't listen. She was already dialing 911, determined to enforce what she believed were the rules. Alex realized that his peaceful morning was over. The calm, quiet lake that he loved so much was about to become a stage for an unexpected and unbelievable encounter. And just like that, the story began. A story of rules, misunderstandings, and one determined HOA Karen who refused to let a peaceful fisherman enjoy his morning. Little did Alex know, this was only the beginning. By the end of the day, this would become a story that nobody would forget, a story about fishing, rules, and an overzealous neighbor who took things too far. The sun continued to rise, casting golden light over the lake. Alex looked at the water, trying to focus on his fishing. Karen watched from the shore, phone in hand, ready to make her move. The calm morning had turned into a suspenseful moment, and the audience would soon see that sometimes, even a quiet lake can become the center of chaos. Alex had just cast his line again when he noticed movement at the edge of the lake. It wasn't the gentle ripple of a fish or a bird landing on the shore. No, this was something different. A shadow moved quickly between the trees, sharp and deliberate. Alex frowned. Who could be walking here so early? Before he could even think, a voice rang out across the water, loud, angry, and demanding attention. "Hey! Stop right there! What are you doing on this lake?" Alex froze. The voice belonged to a woman standing on the shore, one hand on her hip, the other gripping a phone. Her posture screamed authority, and her glare could have stopped a charging bull. Alex blinked, trying to understand. I'm just fishing," he said carefully, keeping his tone calm. "I have permission to be here." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Permission? Who gave you permission?" "I don't see any membership. I don't see any sign this is private property. You can't just come here and fish whenever you want." Alex tried to wave her off gently. "Ma'am, really, it's fine. I have full rights to be here." But she wasn't listening. She had already started pacing along the shore, muttering to herself. Every step she took seemed calculated, like a chess player preparing her next move. Alex watched in disbelief. How could someone get so worked up over a peaceful fisherman? "I'm calling 911, she announced suddenly, holding her phone up like a weapon. Her finger hovered over the screen. "Someone needs to deal with this trespasser." Alex's eyes widened. "Wait! What? You can't just call the cops on me for fishing," he shouted across the lake. His voice carried, but it didn't seem to faze her at all. She was already typing numbers into her phone with determination. The tension was electric. Birds flew away in sudden panic, and the calm water reflected the chaos about to unfold. Alex's fishing rod trembled in his hand, not because of a fish, but because of the impossible situation. How could a peaceful morning turn into a standoff like this? Karen, because that's what Alex had learned her name was not done. She stepped closer to the water's edge, pointing at him like a commander pointing at an enemy soldier. "Yes, you! Stop fishing right now! This is illegal, and I will make sure the authorities know it." Alex tried to reason with her, but every word seemed to bounce off her like water on rock. "Ma'am, please, look, I'm not breaking any rules. I've fished here before, and no one ever." "No excuses," she interrupted, her voice sharp enough to cut through the morning air. "I saw you. I know what you're doing. You're trespassing, and I'm calling the police." For a moment, Alex considered just leaving. Maybe it would be easier to avoid confrontation. But something inside him made him stay. This was his lake, or at least, he had every right to fish here, and he wasn't going to be bullied by someone who clearly loved drama more than facts. He took a deep breath and called out, "Look, I can show you my membership or permission papers. There's no need for this to get out of hand." Karen's eyes flashed with impatience. "Papers? I don't need papers. I saw you fishing. That's enough evidence for me. And if the cops say otherwise, well, they'll see who's telling the truth." Alex shook his head, feeling a mix of frustration and disbelief. He had never met someone so determined to be right, even when they were wrong. But Karen wasn't backing down. Her energy was like a storm rolling across the lake, dark and unstoppable. Then, without warning, she leaned closer and pointed her phone directly at him. "Smile for the camera. I'm documenting everything. You can't just do whatever you want. The world needs rules, and I enforce them." Alex sighed. He realized that reasoning with her might be impossible. She was in full Karen mode: rules, authority, and absolute certainty, no matter how ridiculous. And just like that, the peaceful morning had disappeared, replaced by tension, confusion, and the impossible drama of a woman ready to escalate a simple fishing trip into a full-blown crisis. As Alex tried to keep his cool, he noticed something strange. Other neighbors in the distance were starting to look over. Whispers spread like wildfire. Someone pointed. Someone laughed quietly. The lake, which had been a private retreat, was suddenly a stage for Karen's over-the-top performance. Alex glanced down at his fishing rod, then back at Karen. "This is unbelievable," he muttered to himself. "All I wanted was a quiet morning. Now I have an audience, a 911 call, and a very determined HOA Karen." Karen, meanwhile, was already walking back and forth, muttering into her phone. Her energy was contagious, and for a moment, Alex wondered if she actually believed she was saving the world from a dangerous fisherman. The suspense grew. Would she actually call the cops? Would they believe her story? Would Alex be forced to defend his right to fish in his own space? The calm lake now held the tension of a thriller movie, and the audience could feel it. The story was just beginning. Alex leaned back in his boat and sighed. This was no longer about fishing. It was about patience, logic, and surviving the storm that was Karen. And somehow, he knew this was going to be a story he would never forget. Alex was still sitting in his small boat, trying to focus on the gentle ripples of the lake and the soft tug of his fishing line. But there was no peace to be found. On the shore, Karen's movements had become sharper, faster, almost frantic. Her phone was already in her hand, and she was typing as if the world depended on it. 911, yes, hello, she muttered loudly, pressing buttons quickly. "Yes, there's a man, he's fishing, illegally, on a private lake, yes, right now." Alex froze, his heart skipping a beat. He couldn't believe what was happening. A simple morning fishing trip was now turning into a legal nightmare, or at least, that was Karen's plan. He tried to shout, "Wait! You're wrong! I'm allowed to be here," but her fingers moved too fast, and her voice carried authority that made nearby birds scatter in alarm. Karen paced back and forth, making sure to speak loudly into the phone so the dispatcher could hear every word. "He's not a member. He's trespassing. Look at him. He's fishing right now. Yes, that's him. Please send someone immediately." Alex's jaw dropped. "Not a member," he whispered to himself. "I've fished here for months, and now she's acting like I'm a criminal?" The tension on the shore grew with every passing second. Karen's energy was like a storm, unstoppable, unpredictable, and loud. She held the phone high, gesturing at Alex as if the dispatcher could see through her. "He's ignoring me. He won't stop. He's dangerous." Yes, dangerous, she shouted, her voice rising with each word. Alex could see the people from nearby houses starting to peek through their windows. Whispers and murmurs spread like wildfire. Some neighbors were trying to hide their laughter, others were shaking their heads. Everyone watching could feel the absurdity of the moment, but to Karen, it was deadly serious. Alex tried to reason again, keeping his voice calm. Ma'am, please. You are mistaken. I'm allowed to fish here. You don't need to call 911. But Karen wouldn't listen. She waved her phone in his direction like a sword. No! I'm doing my duty. Someone has to stop him. The law will handle this. The sound of the 911 operator's voice came faintly through the phone. Sir, can you describe the situation? Karen's response was rapid, loud, and dramatic. There's a man fishing illegally on a private lake. He's not a member. Yes, I can see him. Please send help immediately. Alex felt a mix of disbelief and frustration. He had never imagined that fishing could turn into such chaos. He looked around at the calm lake, the birds returning to the trees, the gentle waves lapping against his boat. And yet, the peace of the morning had vanished, replaced by Karen's over-the-top performance. Suddenly, Karen's voice cracked with anger. He's hiding something. I know he's hiding something. He's ignoring all the rules. I need backup now. Alex couldn't hold it in any longer. He raised his hands in surrender, speaking loudly so everyone could hear. Look, I'll show you my papers. I'm allowed to be here. You don't need to call anyone. Karen ignored him completely. Her attention was fully on the phone, her words spilling out like a storm. Yes, I need the police, immediately. He's fishing illegally, not even a member. You don't understand, I'm protecting the neighborhood. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The calm lake, the gentle morning sun, the quiet ripples, all of it contrasted sharply with the chaos unfolding on the shore. Alex realized he was now part of a scene that looked like something out of a movie himself, the calm fisherman versus Karen, the unstoppable force of drama. And then, something unexpected happened. Karen's voice suddenly dropped to a whisper, but her fingers didn't stop moving. He's going to argue, he's going to fight the rules, yes, I see it. Please hurry. Alex leaned back in his boat, exhaling slowly. This is unbelievable, someone calls the cops on me while I'm fishing in my own lake, and she's actually serious. He shook his head, trying to laugh at the absurdity. But Karen's presence was too strong, her energy too dramatic, to allow even a small moment of calm. The suspense hung in the air like thick fog. Every second felt longer than the last. Would the police actually show up? Would they believe Karen's exaggerated story? Or would they see the truth that Alex had every right to fish here? As the minutes ticked by, Karen continued her performance. She walked up and down the shore, gesturing wildly, speaking into the phone as if narrating a thriller. Yes, he's still fishing. I don't know why he won't stop. Send someone. Now! Alex watched, unsure whether to laugh or panic. His peaceful morning had been transformed into a tense drama that nobody could have predicted. And somewhere in the distance, the first sirens began to wail, signaling that Karen's call might just reach its destination. The calm lake, once a sanctuary, had become the stage for an unforgettable encounter. And Alex realized, with a sinking feeling, that this was far from over. Karen had escalated, the 911 call had been made, and the suspense was only getting stronger. The stage was set for what promised to be the most chaotic, ridiculous, and unforgettable fishing trip of his life. The quiet morning at the lake had completely disappeared. The calm ripples of water now reflected tension, confusion, and a stormy mix of emotions. Alex sat in his small boat, gripping his fishing rod, trying to stay calm. But across the lake, Karen was a whirlwind of energy, waving her phone, muttering, and pointing at him like he had committed the gravest crime imaginable. Then, in the distance, a sound broke through the chaos, the faint wail of sirens. Alex squinted, his heart skipping a beat. Are they really coming? He muttered under his breath. Karen's face lit up with triumph. Finally! They're on their way. See? I told you. Someone has to enforce the rules, she shouted, almost dancing with excitement. She looked like a general expecting reinforcements, certain victory in hand. Minutes later, 2 patrol cars slowly rolled down the gravel path near the lake. The officers stepped out, their expressions a mix of professionalism and curiosity. They approached cautiously, noticing the unusual scene, a man calmly fishing in a small boat and a woman frantically pointing at him while holding a phone. Alex raised his hands slightly in greeting. "Good morning, officers. I think there's a misunderstanding." Karen immediately intercepted. "Officers. He's fishing illegally. Not even a member. I saw him with my own eyes. You have to do something." Her voice was loud, dramatic, and full of conviction. She gestured wildly, as if trying to physically pull the officers into her story. Alex sighed, rubbing his forehead. I have full permission to fish here. I own the lake, or at least, I have legal rights." "She's completely mistaken." The officers exchanged glances. One of them, a tall man with a calm voice, addressed Alex first. "Sir, can you show us proof of your permission?" Alex nodded quickly. "Of course. I have my membership papers right here." He reached into his bag and handed over the documents. The officer read them carefully, scanning every detail. Alex's hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the absurdity of the situation. Karen, however, was not convinced. "Documents don't matter. I saw him. He's ignoring the rules. He's dangerous." She waved her phone again, as if the device itself held ultimate authority. The officers tried to stay professional. "Ma'am, please calm down. We need facts, not assumptions." "Sir, you do have permission, correct?" Alex nodded. "Yes, officers. I've fished here many times, always legally. This is my first time having such a scene unfold." Karen huffed angrily. "You think papers matter? What about the neighborhood rules? He's ignoring every rule I know." The tension was almost tangible. The calm lake seemed to pause, as if even nature was holding its breath to see what would happen next. Birds perched quietly in the trees, and the water rippled softly, reflecting the drama above. Then one of the officers turned to Karen, his voice firm but polite. "Ma'am, we have verified the documents. Sir here has the right to fish. There's no violation. Please step back and let him enjoy his morning." Karen's face turned red, but she refused to back down. She muttered something under her breath, pacing a few steps away. Her phone still in hand, she continued to document the scene, as if recording every moment would somehow reverse the facts. Alex shook his head, a mixture of relief and disbelief washing over him. "I can't believe this. All I wanted was a quiet morning on my own lake." One officer smiled faintly. "Ma'am, sometimes things are not as they appear. Please understand that he is within his rights." Karen stomped her foot, muttering angrily, but there was no arguing with the documents or the calm authority of the officers. Slowly, she started stepping back, though she still glared at Alex as if daring him to make a single wrong move. Alex finally cast his line again, trying to refocus on the fishing trip he had planned. He leaned back, exhaling slowly, realizing that his morning of peace had been completely hijacked, but justice, at least, had been served. As the officers walked away, the tension eased slightly, but Karen lingered near the shore, her phone still raised, still recording, her energy simmering like a storm not yet finished. Alex looked at her, trying to suppress a small smile. Some people really take rules too seriously, he thought quietly. And so the morning continued, but it was no longer just a fishing trip. It had become a story of drama, persistence, and one woman's unwavering belief in her mission. The calm lake had survived, but the legend of Karen, the overzealous HOA enforcer, had grown exponentially that day. The audience could almost feel the tension in the air, the ridiculousness of it all, the drama, and the suspense of what Karen might do next. And somewhere in the back of Alex's mind, he knew that this story was far from over. The lake had returned to a fragile peace. The officers were walking back to their cars, leaving a calm silence in their wake. Alex had finally managed to sit back in his boat, letting the gentle water rock him slowly. For a moment, it almost felt like the morning he had imagined, a quiet, peaceful day of fishing. But Karen was not done. Far from it. She stood on the shore, phone still in hand, scanning the lake as if she could magically find a rule that Alex was breaking. Her face was red, half from anger, half from frustration, and half from embarrassment, though she refused to admit it. Alex watched her calmly, a small smirk forming on his face. He knew the truth: the officers had verified his right to fish. He was legally in the clear. And yet, Karen's energy was still stormy, still chaotic. I don't understand, she muttered, pacing in small circles. He shouldn't be allowed. Someone has to enforce the rules. Alex chuckled quietly to himself, then called out in a friendly voice, "Ma'am, the rules are clear. I'm allowed here. Maybe you just need a coffee to calm down?" Karen spun around, glaring, but Alex's calmness seemed to annoy her even more. She waved her phone again, muttering, "This isn't over, it's not over. I'll make sure." Alex leaned back in his boat, enjoying the absurdity. He took a deep breath of the fresh morning air and decided to speak kindly, trying to defuse the tension without angering her further. "Listen, I respect that you care about rules. I really do. But this is my lake, and I've followed every rule here. You don't need to call anyone." Karen stomped her foot, clearly struggling to accept reality. She glanced at the officers walking back to their cars, hoping for reinforcement, but they were gone. The only people left were her and Alex. A small group of neighbors, who had been quietly watching from the distance, began whispering and laughing softly. Karen noticed them. Her face turned a deeper shade of red. She waved her hands dramatically, pointing at Alex, as if she could erase the laughter by sheer force of will. Alex, ever calm, smiled faintly. "It's okay, ma'am. Sometimes people just need to see the truth for themselves." He cast his line gently into the water again, as if nothing had happened. Karen froze for a moment, realizing that Alex wasn't reacting with fear or anger. He wasn't even upset. He was calm, collected, and enjoying his fishing trip despite her theatrics. Her attempts to intimidate him had completely failed. The embarrassment began to show in subtle ways. She muttered under her breath, pacing along the shore, checking her phone as if documentation could reverse reality. "No, this isn't right. He can't just do this. Someone will hear about this." Alex couldn't help but notice her frantic energy and shake his head with quiet amusement. "It seems like rules matter a lot more when you're imagining problems than when they're real," he said to himself. For a few minutes, Karen continued her small parade of frustration, pacing and gesturing wildly, while Alex fished calmly, completely ignoring her theatrics. The scene was almost comical, a storm of anger and rules on the shore versus a serene fisherman on the water. Finally, after several minutes of dramatic pacing, Karen's energy began to fade. She looked around, realizing that everyone could see she had been wrong. Alex's calmness had won. The officers had verified the truth. The audience, those watching from nearby houses, were quietly amused. Alex, reeling in his line, now with a small fish, smiled quietly. Sometimes patience and calm win over chaos, he thought. He looked at Karen one last time, who was muttering to herself on the shore, and shook his head with quiet disbelief. "Fishing should never be this dramatic," he whispered. The lake was peaceful again. The birds returned to the trees, the sun reflected golden over the calm water, and Alex's line danced gently in the ripples. Karen, defeated but still standing, finally lowered her phone. Her mission of enforcement had failed, but her energy and determination had created a story that would be remembered by everyone nearby. Alex leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment, savoring the quiet. The absurd drama of the morning had ended in his favor. His calm, patience, and proof of rights had turned an overzealous HOA Karen into a spectacle for the neighborhood and a story that would be told again and again. And somewhere deep in the back of his mind, Alex knew this wasn't just a fishing trip. It was a story about chaos, rules, patience, and a woman who took her mission too far. One day, he thought with a smirk, this would make a great tale to share on video, and perhaps a cautionary tale for anyone who ever wanted to call 911 over a peaceful fisherman. The lake glimmered in the morning light, calm once more, holding its secrets and the legend of Karen's dramatic intervention close to its heart. The lake was finally calm again. The gentle ripples reflected the warm glow of the late morning sun. Alex leaned back in his boat, feeling the peace he had been seeking all along. After the dramatic chaos with Karen, this quiet moment felt like a small victory. The birds chirped softly, and the water lapped gently against the shore. For the first time in over an hour, he could breathe. He looked at his fishing line bobbing in the water and smiled. All it took was patience, he thought. A little calm, some proof, and, well, a very determined HOA Karen. From the shore, Karen still lingered, pacing slowly now, her phone dangling from one hand. Her energy had shifted from fiery, dramatic storm to simmering frustration. She muttered to herself, as if trying to replay the morning and find a way she could still win. Alex chuckled quietly. He had learned something important that day, not about fishing, but about people. Some people, like Karen, were so focused on enforcing rules that they forgot about reality. They believed in the power of authority and drama more than in facts. And sometimes, the only way to handle them was patience, calm, and letting the truth speak for itself. He picked up his rod again, casting the line gently into the water. The fish tugged lightly, and Alex smiled. There was something satisfying about returning to the simple joy of fishing after all the chaos. It was a reminder that life often has interruptions, people like Karen, unexpected drama, mistakes, but peace can always return if you remain calm and focused. Karen's footsteps slowed. She stood near the water's edge, staring at Alex for a long moment. There was no victory in her eyes, only the realization that this morning hadn't gone as she had imagined. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The lake, serene and indifferent, reflected her defeat. Alex watched her, feeling a mix of amusement and sympathy. Sometimes people just need to be reminded that not everything is their business, he whispered to himself. He didn't gloat. He didn't celebrate loudly. He simply enjoyed the calm, letting the absurdity of the morning settle around him. The neighbors who had watched from a distance quietly returned to their routines, some shaking their heads, some chuckling. The story of HOA Karen and the fisherman was already spreading in whispers, how a calm man had faced over-the-top drama, and how the truth had won without a fight. Alex took another deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment. The sun reflected golden on the water, the birds returned, and even the gentle breeze seemed to approve of the return to peace. He thought about the lesson he had learned: patience and calm often have more power than anger and chaos. Rules are important, yes, but sometimes, people enforce them with blind energy, forgetting the human side of life. He smiled, tugging gently at his line. A fish had taken the bait. The fight was fun, simple, and pure, a perfect contrast to the chaos of the past hour. Fishing, after all, was meant to be simple. And today, he realized, sometimes the best stories come not from the fish you catch, but from the chaos you survive. Karen, finally realizing she couldn't change reality, turned and walked away slowly, muttering under her breath. Her dramatic morning of enforcement had ended in quiet defeat. The lake had returned to its calm, the peace restored, but the legend of her intervention would live on in the neighborhood stories for months to come. Alex laughed softly to himself. Maybe I should record this story, he thought. It's too good to forget. He glanced at the shimmering water, the blue sky, and the gentle ripples around his boat. The lake was a reminder that peace is always possible, even after chaos, and that sometimes, patience and calm are the most powerful tools anyone can have. And with that, he leaned back, enjoying the moment, the fish, and the lesson of the lake. For Alex, the morning had started with a simple goal: peace, fishing, and quiet. It had ended with a story that was anything but simple. But in the end, it was unforgettable, hilarious, and, most importantly, victorious. By now, the morning sun was high, sparkling over the lake. The water reflected the golden light, calm and peaceful again, as if it had never been part of the chaotic scene earlier. Alex sat in his boat, finally able to relax. He had survived Karen's drama, the 911 call, and the parade of overreactions. And yet, somehow, it felt like the story was far from over. Karen, meanwhile, had retreated to the far side of the lake, muttering angrily to herself. Her phone was still in hand, though now it rested at her side. She glanced back at Alex, her face a mix of frustration, disbelief, and stubborn pride. She hadn't won, but she was still determined to hold onto her version of justice. Alex shook his head and laughed quietly. Some people really do live for chaos, he whispered to himself. He cast his line one last time, the ripples in the water blending with his soft chuckle. The absurdity of the morning was almost too much to believe, but it made it unforgettable. The neighbors, who had quietly watched the scene unfold earlier, were now openly talking and laughing about it. Some waved at Alex from their yards. Others whispered jokes about Karen's dramatic performance. The story of a calm fisherman versus an overzealous HOA enforcer was already becoming legendary in the neighborhood. Alex couldn't resist one final comment, speaking so Karen could hear but keeping his tone light. "Ma'am, maybe next time, just enjoy the lake instead of calling the police." Karen froze, glared, and then muttered something under her breath about rules, authority, and how no one understood her. But Alex had already returned to his fishing, his calm smile unchanged. The irony was delicious. Karen's energy had created a spectacle, but it hadn't affected his peace or his rights. For Alex, the moral of the story was clear. Life would always have unexpected drama. People would sometimes overreact. But staying calm, being prepared, and focusing on what really mattered, like fishing, was the key. And if drama came anyway, it could be survived, and even laughed at later. He reeled at a small fish and held it up, smiling. The simplicity of the moment felt like the perfect ending to a morning that had started with chaos and ended with calm. Karen, still on the shore, watched him briefly, her expression unreadable, before finally walking away. Perhaps she would return another day, determined as ever. But for now, the lake and Alex were safe. Alex looked around at the sparkling water, the birds flying freely, and the distant houses of amused neighbors. He laughed softly again. Fishing should always be this dramatic, he thought. Maybe not this dramatic, but at least memorable. And with that, he packed up his things, slowly rowing back to shore. The lake behind him shimmered in the sunlight, peaceful and serene once more. But the legend of HOA Karen, dramatic, determined, and unforgettable, would live on in whispers, laughs, and stories told over and over. Alex grinned as he stepped onto the shore. Today, he had survived chaos, defended his rights, and caught a few fish along the way. And perhaps most importantly, he had a story that no one would ever forget, a story of calm versus chaos, patience versus overreaction, and a lake that witnessed it all. As he walked away, casting one last glance at Karen's retreating figure, he whispered with a smile, some heroes wear fishing hats, and some wear HOA badges. The lake remained calm, the sun bright, and the story complete, perfect for sharing with friends, neighbors, and, of course, a YouTube audience ready to laugh, gasp, and enjoy the drama from start to finish.